Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Our first speaker is someone that at the agency we just love. We just love him. He is not only a good guy, but he's a real problem solver. But Bryce has been at TEA since 1989. He started out in the Division of Financial Audits, and he was doing field audits, desk audits related to the ADA and full-time equivalents. In 1995, Bryce went over to the PEIMS division, and he started doing and supporting all things that had to do with PEIMS data collection. So now Bryce is the PEIMS data planning manager, and he supports all our divisions, and we get to work with him closely with CTE-related PEIMS. So when it was time for us to update the PEIMS decision chart, we worked with PEIMS to get that done. So right now he's really working with the PEIMS transition over to the TSDS, the Texas Systems Data System. So like I said, a real good guy there at TEA, Bryce Templeton. Bryce?
Okay. Thank you, Diane. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning to talk with you. I understand this is the new class for the 2016-17 year Leadership Academy, so welcome to you. And this morning we want to spend a little bit of time talking about PEIMS data as it relates to current technical education program. Now we have 52 slides in 60 minutes, and that works out to 1.15 minutes per slide, or as my colleague that's coming after me, Chanda Williams, will tell you, it's 69 seconds per slide. So she's going to talk to you about 75,600 minutes and all that goes with that. And so anyway, 69 seconds per slide average, but no, we'll get through this just fine. Okay, so we've already gotten through the first two, and we've made up time already. So let me talk to you just a little bit about an overview of the PEIMS data and its importance. So show of hands, how many of you personally know the district level or charter school level PEIMS coordinator at your local education agency? Okay, if your hand didn't go up, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do when you get home is to go make their acquaintance, because I'm going to give you some information today that you're going to want to go have a one-on-one conversation with them about. And it may make them a little bit uncomfortable that a program area person, an academic program area person, is coming to them for this information in the heat of a PEIMS submission coming up this fall. But I think you're going to see after the presentation today that asking the questions I'm going to recommend you ask are of vital interest, not only to your program, but to your school district or your charter school. Are there any charter schools here, by the way? Okay, good. So we saw one hand, two hands. Okay, I just want to keep aware that you're in the room here, because sometimes things are a little bit different for charter schools. So PEIMS has been around for over 25 years. It was legislated back in 1986, I believe, and it was implemented for first collection in 1989. And it's gone through several iterations of collection systems. Effective with the 16-17 school year, every public school in the state of Texas is now officially participating in the brand new Texas Student Data System, TSDS. Some will tell you it stands for Texas Student Disposal System, but it's actually Texas Student Data System, okay? People have fun with all kinds of acronyms of things that we put out. In fact, when you work at TEA and you start there, you have to have a little list of running acronyms and refer to them because they're everywhere. So for this school year, you're submitting the same data that you've been submitting in the past, but it's going through a different system. And the activities necessary to get that data submitted are very different than what your district PEIMS coordinator or charter school PEIMS coordinator used to do. And so we want to go to that person, we want to ask them some questions so that we can be sure the data that they are pulling out of our student management system and are loading to the Texas Student Data System on behalf of our school is correct. And Diane can attest to this. In the past 3 years, we have gotten a continual increase of schools that come back after the fact and say, I didn't report my coherent sequence correctly, or I didn't report something else correctly with CTE. And every one of these can be avoided by the things I'm going to show you today. So that's what I want to share with you today as we go forward here. The old Edit Plus system, it's retired. We don't load data to it anymore. So if you've heard the acronym Edit Plus in your school, the only reason you should hear about that going forward is in a historical sense, looking for historical data, not doing anything for the future. So the current technical ed data gets reported 2 times per year to the TEA. And you're about to go through one right now, the fall snapshot. The fall snapshot is the last Friday in October. Every year, no matter what, it's a snapshot of your school district enrollment, student program participation, budget, budgeted payroll, shared service arrangement participation, staff data, student demographics. What does my school look like on the last Friday in October? So this is the first one that we're going to be concerned about, and this is the one we'll focus on today. If Diane has me, or Carol has me come back in the spring, we'll give you the second half of this for the summer submission. But today we want to focus about the fall, and as you progress through the year, through this academy, you will learn more about the rest of the data collection. The second time is the summer. We get the student attendance data and some career and technical ed program participation data at the end of the year. This drives your state funding for career and technical ed. So let's look at what CTE data is actually collected by TEA. And I'm going to look at everything, and then we'll back off and focus on just the fall. So there are 8 data elements. Actually, there's 7, but one of them gets duplicated because it's collected twice. The first is the career and technical ed participation code, and you'll see I have $signs out beside that. Did I give you a clue how important that is? Remember what I said about schools not getting their coherent sequence numbers correct? Dollars, federal dollars, Perkins dollars. So this is something we want to hone in on and make sure it's right. The second one is the Displaced homemaker indicator code. There are this one and 2 more are I guess you call them statistical indicators of the current technical ed program. They don't really generate dollars per se, but it's something that the states have to report to the feds on these state current technical ed programs. The third one is the single parent pregnant teen code, and this is only for kids that are in the current technical ed program. The fourth one is a transportation CTE support service, and we'll see it's geared towards economically disadvantaged students. And then the service ID. What courses, what current technical ed courses are the students taking as of the last Friday in October? And then in the summer, we get the services or the course numbers again of the courses they attempted and completed through the course completions. We get an advanced technical credit indicator code, which is related to the outcome of a current technical ed course. And then we have current technical ed attendance data, and I've got $signs past that. So there's the second one that's got dollars. Both of these collections impact the funding for your school, so we want to pay attention to all of our data, but especially to those elements that cause us to get funding or maybe lose funding if we don't pay quite enough attention to them. Okay, so let's look at the first one for the fall. We're going to look at just the first 5 this morning. So the first one is the career technical ed indicator code. And if you've got this downloaded to your device, I've got a little bit of color coding in here that's linked. This green and this red are purposeful, so you'll see those colors show up in another place. So the career technical ed indicator code indicates whether a student enrolled in a state-approved career technical ed course is participating under an elective, or if it's as the participant in the district's coherent sequence program. I'm paraphrasing just a little bit there, but you've got the actual words in your screens. So we used to have a tech prep code. That's gone. Out of here, we have 2 choices now. The participants that are in the program are either just casually taking a career and tech course, or they're in the coherent sequence program. So you'll report your data to TEA, and there's 3 choices for the current technical ed code, and it's a mandatory field for all enrolled students as of the last Friday in October. 0 means they're not enrolled in a CTE course. 1 means they're just taking a CTE course. Kid wants to raise an animal and go to 4-H or something, but they're not really interested in coherent sequence, so they're in the program. And then we have the participant in the coherent sequence. These are kids 9 through 12 enrolled in a sequential course of study which develops occupational knowledge, skills, and competencies relating to a CTE program of study. The student must have a 4-year plan of study and take 2 or more courses for 3 or more credits over the course of their high school career. So that's coherent sequence in a nutshell, and you probably know that, but I'm showing this to you from a data reporting point of view. What is this going to look like in the data? And we back up and just hit number 1 again. This covers grades 6 through 12. So we don't allow, I said for all students, we don't allow kids under grade 6 to be reported with these because it's not relevant, and that would be erroneous to ask you for a code for a kid that can't even participate. But for 6 through 12, they're going to be 0, 1, or 2. The second one is the Displaced homemaker code. And this definition, are you familiar with this one at all? Some? Okay. This has one of the most contorted definitions I've ever seen, but I've come to expect that out of federal guidance. Displaced homemaker means a student or person who has worked primarily without remuneration to care for a home and family, and for that reason has diminished marketable skills, has been dependent on the income of another family member but is no longer supported by that income, or is a parent whose youngest dependent child will become ineligible to receive assistance under Part A of Title IV of the Social Security Act, blah, 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 not later than 2 years after the date on which the parent applies for assistance under such title, and is unemployed or underemployed and is experiencing difficulty in obtaining or upgrading employment. Wow, what a brainful. The number one question that people ask about this element is, how in the world am I supposed to identify these students in my school district? And my only advice to you is that if a student is entering the current technical ed program, is to take this lengthy definition and break it down into some very simple questions that are yes/no responses. If you ask the average person to read this and come up with a yes or no response, they're going to fail more than 50% of the time. But if you will break it down, let's go back. Are you required to care for your home and family? Are you the primary caretaker for your home and family? And for that reason, you have diminished marketable skills. And diminished marketable skills is almost a given. You don't really ask the person that question because it's a given that because they're caring for their family, they probably have diminished marketable skills. Next question you can ask, are you dependent on the income of another family member? Yes or no? Were you dependent on the income of another family member that is maybe not in place anymore? So you kind of get the idea here. You can break this definition down, and then here's the or. Is a parent whose youngest child? Are you a parent? Do you have a child? Are you receiving assistance under Title IV of the Social Security Act? Not later than, so you get the idea. You can go through this and break this thing down into some questions that the person will ask, and Diane's department may have some guidance on this as well. But this doesn't have dollars associated with it per se, but it is a statistic, and we do try to get the data correct. And then the and clause, are you unemployed? Were you employed, and are you seeking a job? That's the definition of unemployment. Are you having difficulty obtaining employment or upgrading your employment? So you can take this long definition and break it down and figure out who these kids are, but some questions have to be asked and the questions have to be answered. And when you boil it all down, it's a yes or no response. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. Single parent pregnant teen code. This one's a lot easier. It indicates whether the student that's in the current technical ed program, I mean they're a 1 or a 2, is unmarried or legally separated from a spouse and has minor children for which the parent has either sole custody or joint custody, or they're pregnant. That's it. And you can break this down to basically 2 questions. Are you unmarried with children for which you have sole or joint custody? Are you legally separated from your spouse and have children for which you have sole or joint custody? Or are you pregnant? And for the pregnancy, there's a whole other program, and Chanda Williams can address this with you better than I can, that deals with students that are pregnant on a more global level at the school district. There's a pregnancy-related services program, and one of the things that the pregnancy-related services coordinator will almost always do is put these kids into the current tech ed program, give them parenting classes and teach them parenting skills so that they're ready for what's coming their way. This element is not a yes-no. It gets reported with a 0, not applicable, 2, they're a single parent, or 7, they're a pregnant teen. Now the big jump in the codes here tells me that there were other codes collected here a long time ago. We just didn't randomly pick numbers. There was a 1, a 3, 4, 5, and 6 at least at one time. But you can literally take that definition and break it down into these 2 questions. Are you a single parent? Yes or no? Are you a pregnant teen? Yes or no? And then you can crosswalk to these codes and get the right answer. Again, to my knowledge, this doesn't have a data reporting, a dollar impact on your school, but it does have a data impact for the state reporting to the feds. Number 4, the transportation CTE service. This is focused on economic disadvantaged students that are receiving special transportation services to commence or continue career or technical training. Now, Diane and I have been having conversations about this one, and we think this one's going to die before the end of next year, because at TEA, we go through something called a sunset process on the data collections. And Diane cannot find a legitimate reason for the state of Texas to collect this data any longer. It's too late to pull it out for 16, 17, because it disrupts all kinds of lives. Software vendors, school district lives. Okay, so Diane's researching this one. This one may come out this next year, but just for your benefit, this is, if you're providing transportation services for economic disadvantaged students to get to a job as part of their career technical ed program, then you're going to report yes. If you're not, then you're going to report no. Just off the quick raise of hand, how many think you're providing transportation service for economic disadvantaged students in your school? 1, just a few hands, okay? So this will apply to some of you right now, but watch closely. And when I come back in the spring, I will probably be able to tell you for certain at that time whether this will continue into 17, 18 or not. Okay? Well, let's see. It says to enable the student to commence or continue career and technical training. So it could be on-job training related to a course, or it could be going to a college for technical training. It could actually be instruction. But we'll get back to you all later this spring when Diane and I can figure out more about if this is still valid or not. My point about telling you that is that TEA is diligent in reviewing the data annually to determine what is no longer needed to relieve the data reporting on school districts. So if you ever feel like that TEA is just loading you up with data, I want to assure you that every piece of data that you're asked for has undergone a review, and it goes under continual reviews to be sure that it's still mandated and needed for state or federal reporting purposes. Okay, the service ID. On the last Friday in October, your current tech ed students are going to be enrolled in some courses. Your ones, every one is going to be in a course, but not every 2 coherent sequence kid is going to be in a course, right? Because they may be off this semester, their courses will happen in the spring. That's okay. Don't worry that your coherent sequence kids are not loaded in the data with courses. Worry if they're taking courses and it's not showing in the data. So it's very simple. You're just going to pull out the courses that they're reporting, that they're taking as of the last Friday in October. If they already completed the course and they've moved on, don't want it. If they haven't started the course yet, we don't want it. We only want the ones that are active on the last Friday in October. You'll get the opportunity to report the ones they completed or will complete in the summer collection, and we'll talk about that next spring. There's a code table that's commonly referred to as C022. If you do not have possession of your career and technical ed course listing, your PEIMS coordinator can get it for you. It's also available on the TEA website. It's a little tricky to get to in the TSDS world, but get your PEIMS coordinator to get that for you. You can also do a search on the TEA website for C022, and I think you'll land on it as well. So there's a couple ways you can get to that, but if you don't have that, get it. And as you probably know, the CTE courses are undergoing a massive rewrite for 17-18, and we are going to do our best to have that out on the web for you by November 1. That's a month earlier than we would normally release it, but we're going to try to get that out there 1 month earlier so that you can have those courses for your 2017-18 planning. All right, and then this is in your handout, but I'm not going to really address it this morning. We don't have time, but there's the ATC code. We'll talk about that in the spring. There's the career and technical ed attendance data. We'll talk about that in the spring. There's the course completions. We'll talk about that in the spring. But I just wanted this to be in your handout, and you can read ahead and study. Okay, let's talk about how CTE data is reported through the PEIMS system. So for the fall submission, we've talked about this, but just kind of bring it to a high-level discussion here. The CTE students reported with their participation code as of the last Friday in October. And I'm going to show you some reports down here that you'll go and ask your PEIMS coordinator for. And if they don't want to give them to you, take them out behind the building and beat them with a rubber hose or something, but get them. Because you do not want, as program directors, you do not want to leave the quality of your program in the hands of the data coordinator. That data coordinator has so much work to do that, do they care about your program? Yes. Do they care about it at the level that you do? Probably not. So we want to get those reports in your hands. So this is, you're looking at a population of kids that participated as of the last Friday in October. They're reported with their CTE indicator code as of last Friday in October. This is a little bit of review now. You're going to report the Displaced homemaker code. You're going to report the single parent pregnant teen code. You're going to report the transportation CTE service code. And then the service ID of the courses they're taking. All 5 of these things as of the last Friday in October. So if we haven't beat that horse enough, we probably should stop because he's getting dead. Okay, your PEIMS coordinator uses something that people commonly refer to as a student information system. You might call it a student data management system. And there's all kinds out there. You can buy them from your service center, ITEX from Region 20, Texas from Region 20, Skyward, Infinite Campus. I'm not supporting these, I'm just naming them off as I think of them. Pearson has got some. There's numerous systems out there, and you probably didn't have any input in selecting it. But they all do the same thing. They allow data about the student enrollment and student programs to be input, and when it comes time for the PEIMS coordinator to submit the data through the Texas Student Data System, they're going to go to a screen and they're going to say, it says something like extract my fall data. And they're going to push this and it's going to go through all these calculations that the software vendor has programmed in the system, and it's going to spit out this data file, and the PEIMS coordinator is going to load it to the Texas Student Data System data warehouse. And then at some point, when they have all the data loaded, or most of the data loaded, they're going to promote that to the Texas Student Data System PEIMS portal. It used to be called Edit Plus. It's now the TSDS PEIMS portal. Once the data is in this portal is when you become interested, because now the TEA is going to take the data that's been promoted to this portal, and we're going to create reports. Your student management systems will create reports, but you can't count on those reports being the same as the ones that TEA is producing. And TEA is producing the reports from the mindset of this. What does the superintendent, the program area managers need in order to validate the data so that when the superintendent logs in and signs off and says, I hereby certify the data is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, and I have reviewed the data for accuracy, and if I reviewed all the data errors that were reported, that they can do so in good, clear conscience and not worry about something being really wrong. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here, but the people that we talked about earlier that messed up on their twos, their coherent sequence reporting, they didn't review their data. And if you'll follow the steps I'm going to give you this morning, you will not make this mistake that they made. There are data validations in the Texas Student Data System, and we are constantly reviewing and updating these validations. We're looking for the relationships in the data so that we can help a school get a high level of data before you ever go ask for the reports. For example, you remember the CTE Current Tech Support Service code? There's a clue in the definition, economically disadvantaged. So what we do, we say, aha, if somebody's going to report yes on CTE transportation support, two things have to be true. One, the student has got to have a CTE code. That kind of takes care of itself. But more importantly, they have to be economically disadvantaged. So the PEIMS coordinator will be facing a fatal data error if they try to report a yes on this, but the kid doesn't also have the economic disadvantage code set to something other than 0. So the PEIMS coordinator will be doing validation checks and validation corrections, and at the point when the file is what we call fatal free, meaning there are no more fatal errors that would stop the school from finishing the data reporting to TEA, is when you're going to get interested here. So when I said establish that relationship with your PEIMS coordinator, the first thing you want to know from them is this: Mr. or Mrs. PEIMS coordinator, I need to know when the file is fatal free. Why do you need to know that, CTE program director? Because I'm going to come ask you for some reports so that I can review my program. It doesn't do you a lot of good to ask for the reports ahead of time of the file being fatal free, because they're still fixing stuff. But they'll get there. The snapshot date is the last Friday in October. The data is due for the first time to TEA the third, it depends on the calendar, either the second or the third Thursday in December. Depending on how Christmas break falls, the data will be due to TEA about the second or the third Thursday in December. Never fear, you get a second chance. We're going to go on Christmas break, enjoy the holidays, and then come back. The data will be due in its final form the third Thursday in January. So you got some time here to work with the data. Don't feel like that's what's happening right now before Christmas is your only chance to get your data correct. All right. On the next slide, I've got some validation rules, and these are kind of in layman text here because I didn't want to burden you with the technical jargon. It's boring. But if you want to ask the PEIMS coordinator about what kind of validation problems are we having, you might want to do this. You don't have to, but you might want to. And they can give you a report of the validation errors related to the current technical ed data. And so for the next few slides, I've got the rule and I've got a number. In this case, it's 40110-0085. And that rule says that a student enrolled in a current tech course must be reported with a current tech ed program and course data. You can't tell me a student is a 1 or a 2 and not give me a course. It's a fatal error. So if you're getting this error in the system, that means that the system cannot see the course data, which means the student's schedule was probably messed up. PEIMS coordinator can help fix this, but you want to be aware of the problem. The next rule, 40110-0088. Students must be within the grade range of 6 through 12. We're going to block anybody that's below grade 6 from being reported with a current tech code because, one, we don't need the data. It doesn't matter if you have come up with an innovative program and you're figuring out a way to incorporate 5th graders into a career tech program, even though it's unofficial. The state of Texas doesn't want to know that because we don't have the right to the knowledge and we don't have a need to report it to anybody. Great that you're doing it, but we don't need it. So we're going to block the data. The next rule, in the grade range of 6 through 12, there should be at least 1 student. This is district level and campus level in the current tech program. You'd be amazed at how many times on that first submission that's due about that 2nd or 3rd Thursday in December that people have left out all of their current tech data. This is not a fatal error. It's a warning because we do have school districts that do not have current tech programs. So we have to allow them to be able to get through the validations. But if you're a larger school district and you're seeing this error show up, Houston, we have a problem, right? We haven't gotten our current tech data either pulled out of our student management system or loaded to the ODS in the TSDS system. Okay, 40110-0090. There should be at least 1 current tech kid that's coherent sequence. With the demise of Tech Prep 3, we're seeing a natural increase in 2s. I'm also seeing a natural increase in 2s across the state. I think there's been some policy changes that have driven schools to get kids more involved in current tech and certainly coherent sequence program. I don't know that. It just, the data kind of looks that way to me when I look at it. You may be able to validate that. The Rule 86, you're going to get a warning if a coherent sequence student doesn't have a course, but don't panic, it's not fatal. Because remember, the coherent sequence kid doesn't have to always be taking a CTE course. They could be in an off semester. So you want to, don't take these rules as like, oh no, we have something wrong. You want to look at them as, is this right? Is it right that I don't have a student that's coherent sequence in a course? And the answer is going to be yes sometimes because it's not time on their course schedule, on their plan to be a current tech course participant. And then Rule 87 here, students in grades 6, 7, or 8 cannot be reported as participating in coherent sequence because by definition, it's what? Grade 9 through 12. So there's another relationship we build into the validations to stop bad data from coming in when the combination is not possible. Okay, 41169-003. These rules are going to talk about those additional indicators. The special transportation services must be economically disadvantaged. Remember I talked about that moment? We had a question over here. So we're checking the data relationships across the system of the data you report to help you get a high quality of data before you ever lay your eyes on it from those reports that we're fixing to talk about. Middle school students, if the service ID, the course ID reported for CTE students in middle school course, then the kid must be in middle school, grades 6 through 8. And sometimes there'll be a digit slipped or something, and the wrong course just got applied to the high school student. But in this case, those 6 through 8 career and tech courses, there are not very many of them, are relegated to grades 6 through 8 students only. So we're going to check for that as well. All right, we're on to the reports now. This is the good stuff. This is the part that I really like, and I hope you'll like as well. The TSDS PEIMS system report numbers are totally different. They start out PDM, PEIMS Data Management, and a number, a 1. The 1 indicates the fall submission, and then there's a 6-digit number, 120005. And don't get tied up in that number too much because it doesn't really mean a lot. It's just kind of a sequential numbering. But anytime you see a 1 in the report title after the PDM, you know it's fall. If you see a 3, you know it's going to be summer. And since those are the only 2 times we report data, the only reports you're interested in are PDM 1s and PDM 3s. So the first report that I'm going to ask you to go ask your PEIMS coordinator for when your PEIMS file is fatal free is PDM 1 120005. This is a student enrollment by program for career and technical ed program. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you a real report because I'd have to be in the system and I'll be showing you another district's data. But you can go home today and you can ask the PEIMS coordinator for this report as it is if you just want to get an idea of what it looks like and what's on it. But the report is going to include student counts by career and technical ed participation. How many zeros, how many 1s, and how many 2s. So right off the bat, if you believe that you have 500 students in your career and tech program, and this report comes back with 250, you have a big fat clue that some kids are not marked correctly in your student management system, and we've lost some kids. Or vice versa, if you believe you have about 500 and it comes back with 750, we've got some kids marked that aren't there, or there's some kids you don't know about. So the first thing you can do with this report is validate the population of the students that you have. And if this report doesn't give you a number that you're comfortable with about what you believe is true about your career and tech program, start asking the hard questions. And if you don't know the questions to ask, you can ask me, and I'll help you. I'm here to help this class through this year. So normally you would have to go through the TEA incident management system to get help, but you get a bye here being part of this cohort, this leadership academy. So you tell me, hey, I was at your class and my counts are off and I need help, and I'll help you with that. The second report is PDM 1 120009, and the title is Disaggregation of PEIMS Student Data. Everybody wants to know about programs by student groups. What percentage of ethnicity? What percentage of gender? What percentage of this? What percentage of that? So this report breaks down the career and technical ed participation by ethnicity, total count, and ethnicity and race. So if you're interested in what percentage of African Americans or Hispanic or Asian or white or all the different categories that are participating in your program, this is a good report for you. And so I'll give you a way you can test this. One of the least popular ethnicity student groups in the state is Pacific Islander, Hawaiian Pacific Islander, I believe is the right name. If you know that you've got a student like that in your program and they don't show up on this report, we got a problem. Maybe, and what is the problem? We don't know yet. Did they decide they're not Hawaiian Pacific Islander anymore? That could be it. Or maybe they just got left out. So you can use these reports and look at your program and ask the hard questions. Is this true about my program? And then compare it to what you know or what you believe about your program to get to the solution or the truth, whatever the case may be. The next report is the PDM 1 122001. This breaks the career and technical ed program participation down by gender and ethnicity and course. What do we want this for? Are the feds still interested in students that are taking non-traditional courses for their gender? They are. So this can kind of give you an idea of how many girls are taking welding, for example, in your school district or charter school. So you can take this report and look at the data that is coming out of your student management system, and again, ask yourself this question: is this right? Does this reflect what I believe to be true about my school? And if you believe that you have, I don't know, a certain number of females that are taking non-traditional female courses, or males that are taking non-traditional male courses, and it's not represented on this report, you want to go ask the hard question: what happened? We want to get to the solution or the truth. The next report shows the courses that we're taking. So every school year, when a school district or charter school gets ready to ramp up, they build a course catalog, right? And you have predetermined a subset of the thousands of courses that the state has approved as these are the courses that we're going to offer at my LEA. And then we subset that and say, these are the current tech courses that we're going to offer at my LEA. So when you look at report PDM 122002, you're looking for two things: courses that don't belong because you didn't approve them for your school, or courses that you did approve that are missing. Now, maybe you approved the course and nobody signed up for it. That's a real possibility. But again, we want to get to either the solution or the truth. What is right? And if we find there's a problem, then we work with our PEIMS coordinator to figure out where that problem is to get to the correct data so that we can represent the truth. PDM 122003. This is going to break down the current technical ed data for you by code, the 0, 1s, and 2s, and the grade level. You're interested in the 1s and 2s and the grade level. For example, if you know that in your school district you do not allow 6th graders to be in the current tech program, I don't know if that's a real concept or not, I'm just going to use an example, and you see 6th graders on this report, we have a problem. So you want to go to the PEIMS coordinator and talk to that person about why is our system showing 6th graders being in current tech if that's not what we believe to be true about our program. Again, getting to solution or the truth about our data. So this report will generate output for grades 6 through 12 depending upon what was loaded to your system. If you don't have any 6th, 7th, or 8th graders, then you're not going to have, you might have 0s, but you're not going to have any 1s if you don't allow them into your program. The next report is PDM 122004. This is a roster report. This report gets down to the nitty-gritty of the names of the students. This is one I would encourage you to get and do a sample audit on. A good way to do a sample audit is to pick every nth entry. If you have a really large district, you might want to pick every 10th one. If you have a smaller district, you might want to pick every 3rd one on the list. And just produce a list and go check that for yourself to make sure that these kids are really in the program. Because what happens in a really large school district, we don't know all the kids' names necessarily. What happens in a really small school district, we know them. In fact, in a small district, their parents know what's going on before they get home, right? So the difference in community size creates a different need to validate this report. Now, if you believe you have 500 students and the report shows you've got 500 kids and you think you know who all the kids are, you may be able to do a visual scan on this report and say, I am A-OK. But in a school district like Dallas, there's no way that the PEIMS coordinator at the central office can do this. They're dependent on the principals doing this at the campus level. Anyway, that report is there. This has some confidential data on it, so don't just print this out and leave it laying around. Use this with your discretion. But my point is that the reports go from very high level to very low level detail and everything in between. And with these reports, I guarantee you, if you will look at the data in terms of what do I know to believe, what do I believe to be true about my program concerning the content of the report, and what is the report telling me, and reconcile those two things to get to either the solution or a truth, you're going to come out A-OK every time, and your PEIMS data will always be right. And you will never have to send Diane that scary letter from the superintendent that says we messed up on our current tech data and didn't get all of our money. Okay, that is the end of the presentation here. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. We have about 15 minutes. I will entertain some questions at this time. Anything that we've talked about, anything that maybe you were expecting to be talked about that what? Start right here and then we'll go to the back.
So there's no change to the...
Right. There's a flow chart, and I did not include that in here because it's not PowerPoint friendly. In fact, I can go try to pull that up if we've got time. Okay. Okay, the chart's in your binder. I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm going to go to the legacy PEIMS system to show you this because we can get there quicker.
Yeah, the decision charts are already on the live binder under this presentation.
Oh, okay. All right. So this, I understand, is in your binder. There are two flow charts, one for fall and one for summer. These have not changed, even though we're going to a new student data system. Well, they have. The only thing that's changed is we dropped out the coherent tech prep, the tech prep. You know what? So if y'all bear with me just a minute. So to get to the TSDS system, you use this little blue tab on the top of the TEA webpage, TSDS. And it takes you to a whole other website. And I'm looking for data standards, TED's data standards, and I'm going to choose the collections button that pops up under it. And hopefully it'll come up. Okay. And I'm going to go to the 16-17 PEIMS only. There's dashboards that schools can use as well, and that's a whole other topic that I'm not going to get into today. And then I'm going to go down here to, there's the code table 22 excerpt I was telling you about, that you can pull down all of the courses and you can get just the ones that you're interested in for your school that are offered. So we're going to go to Data Submission Requirements, Section 8.2. And we're going to go to the student category because it's student-related data. You can have a whole training class on just how to use this web page. Okay, here it comes. All right, so we are looking for, okay. So the chart has changed from the respect that tech prep is no longer part of the flow. So we start out, and this is I don't know who does the coding of your current tech ed kids in your school, but whoever's doing it, this is what they need to have printed out in front of them if they have trouble making the decision. On the snapshot date, was the student enrolled in a current tech course? Yes or no? If we say yes, then we follow down this side. If we say no, then we've got to ask some other questions. But if we say yes, do they have a 4-year plan related to coherent sequence? If we say no on the left side, then they're a 1. If we say yes, then we've got to go down and find out, do they have the coherent sequence plan, 4-year plan, etc., taking 2 or more courses for 3 or more credits. And then if we come up with the answer yes, we code them a 2, and we're done. So tech prep is no longer in this chart. If you go back to the top and we look at the right side of the chart, and the first question was, on the last Friday in October, are they taking a CTE course? And the answer is no. Then we've got to go through and figure out, and what this logic does is help you get to whether or not they're a coherent sequence or not. Do they have a 4-year plan for occupational study? No, then they're a 0. If it's yes, then we ask them, has the student completed at least 1 semester of a CTE course which is part of their coherent sequence? If the answer is no, we go back to 0 because the CTE coherent sequence has got to have completed at least 1, but they could be off on a semester or something. And then if they have completed that course, then we get to code them a 2. coherent sequence. So this is just a really cool chart that Diane and her staff have helped us maintain that allows you to answer some very simple questions and always get to the right CTE code for a student that's in the CTE program. So this has changed only in terms of tech prep being tossed out. Yes, ma'am. A freshman cannot be a 2 unless they have already taken the course. So you go back to this first box right here, and I'm going to lean to Diane here to help me. Has the student completed it one semester of a CTE course, which is part of their coherent sequences? So if the answer, okay. Okay, the question was, if an 8th grader has taken a what course? Touch status systems in 8th grade, and they get to 9th grade, can they be a 2? And the answer is no, because they have to be in grade 9 through 12 when they sign up for coherent sequence. They have to be grade 9 through 12 to have a coherent sequence plan. You can't, I don't believe that you can pre-populate your coherent sequence courses before you get into the program. Okay, so Diane is saying that the instructions to get to this chart are on the Career and Technical Ed webpage on the TEA website. Okay? There was a question in the back corner over here. You've been patient. So the question is, can a freshman be a 2, a coherent sequence? And it's difficult because as a freshman, they have to have completed at least one course as part of their coherent sequence. So the example up here was that the student was in 8th grade when they took touch systems. I believe that was the touch data systems. And then they get to high school, they want to claim credit for that as a coherent sequence, but you can't be in coherent sequence until you're in 9th grade. So what Diane is hinting me over here is that in 8th grade you may have taken the course, but you don't have a coherent sequence plan yet, so that course doesn't count. That's not the question? Okay. Okay, well, correct me on what the question is then.
All right, and can I speak to that for a minute, Bryce? Travis Waddell, Region 10.
Please.
Back here.
Please.
Because I train on this all the time. This is a question I answer probably weekly. And what it is, if we go off this fall coding chart, I'm going to look at the new one, because I've been using the old one where I just crossed out number 3. And so I wanted to look at this one. And to help you all out, to put it in layman's terms, when I break it down for districts, I'm like, here's how we do it. You answer the question once and you don't go back. So what it is on the fall snapshot date, was the student enrolled in a technical course? We're going to take a 9th grader who took a Principles of Agriculture class and is now sitting in band and football and is not going to be enrolled in any CTE classes in 9th grade. So we have a 9th grader, not enrolled in CTE, has a semester behind or more behind their belt of CTE coursework they earned in 8th grade for high school credit, and they're on a 4-year plan to earn 2 or more classes for 3 or more credits. So what that would look like is on the fall snapshot date in the career technical session, was the kid enrolled in CTE? We're going to answer no. On the fall snapshot date, does the student have a 4-year plan? They better. It's under law now for House Bill 5. For a personal graduation plan to take a coherent sequence of CTE courses that develops an occupational knowledge, skills, and competencies relating to the CTE program. Say we're going to push them through agriculture and natural resources. That answer would be yes if you had their program laid out on their PGP, their personal graduation plan. If you go to yes, has a student completed at least one semester of CTE coursework as part of their coherent sequence? Let's say they did Principles of Ag in 8th grade. That answer would be yes. And if you look down there, then you would code that student a 2. And so, and the idea would be you can code them a 0 or a 2 if you're on the no side, and you can code them a 1 or a 2 if you're on the other side. But that's something I deal with all the time. So I just wanted to, then you would go to the yes side of it, and it would either be a 1 or a 2. He said that if they've never taken a course and they're not enrolled in a course, then you would go to the other side, and we would read yeah, the chart. You would just follow the chart on the yes side. You're saying they're currently enrolled in 9th grade in a course. You'd follow it from the yes side. I'm saying they could be a 2 if they weren't enrolled in a course. A 9th grader can be a 2 if they are or aren't enrolled, depending on what their transcript says. Does that make sense? Bryce, I hope I didn't add more confusion.
That's okay. Okay.
So,
okay, question right here at the table. Okay, everybody. Let's listen.
What I heard was that the 8th grade course could not be part of a coherent sequence even though it's for high school credit. So I'm hearing two different things. I just need clarity.
Oh, okay, I'm looking to the CTE staff here for a ruling on this because at the time the course was taken, the student did not have a 4-year plan for a coherent sequence of study. So what do y'all say?
We're saying that it's a possibility that they could be a 2.
Okay, it's a possibility they could be a 2.
Right. And Travis, the way Travis explained it, I think clarifies that. Travis, you want to do it again? Okay.
What it boils down to is when you're dealing with 9th graders especially, it's your 9th grade that this really impacts. They're either going to be a 0 or a 2 if they're coming into the 9th grade. And the reason behind that is if you have a 9th grader, and I'll slow it down a little bit. If you have a 9th grader who's currently not enrolled in any CTE courses, but in their 8th grade time frame, they earned any CTE credit for high school credit, it really doesn't matter what they were doing at that point. It matters what's going on this moment in time when we're looking at their PGP, their personal graduation plan, while we're setting in the 9th grade. It didn't ask if they earned it in junior high or high school. It asked do they have any credit in CTE for a half a semester. So if it's part of the coherent sequence that they are now on, it's going to be part of how they graduate in the 12th grade. It's going to filter into that, just like if they took an Algebra 1 class in 8th grade, it would be part of their graduation process at the end. So the idea is if they've earned a half a credit or more in CTE in the 8th grade, they are currently in 9th grade. You have a PGP on file that's going to allow for them to earn 2 or more credits for 2 or more classes and 3 or more credits on a coherent sequence. Then what happens is that's going to filter in. So you're going to look at that and you'll be able to answer this chart. And it goes back to the chart and answering it. It's really simple. It goes, on the fall snapshot date, was the student currently enrolled in a class? It's either yes or no. You come down, and if the answer is no, they're not currently enrolled, on the fall snapshot date, does the student have a 4-year plan to take a coherent sequence of courses that will develop knowledge and skills and a comprehensive relating to CTE course of study? If that answer is yes, then you go to the next one. Has the student completed at least 1 semester of CTE course, which is part of the student's coherent sequence? It doesn't matter when it was earned. It matters that they currently possess that. That answer would be yes. And then you would code them based off of the next one. It says, does the student's 4-year plan include taking 2 or more CTE classes for 3 or more credits? And if the answer is yes, you can code them a 2. You should code them a 2. Because when they start testing, your PBMS data is going to populate based off those number 2s and indicators 1 through 4 for PBMS.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Does that kind of help everybody get to a good place? Okay. All right, we're out of time. I need to pass the torch to the next speaker here. So thank you for your time today. My email address is in your handout. Let me know how we can be of service to you.